Ghoulies and ghosts, thin out your hairy herd. Make peace with the demon of the ravine. And somebody's gonna pay for all my sins, and it damn well better not be me.
Alms for the poor, it's time to talk told to me.
Nice. Welcome back. I am Omen Thomas Sade.
And I am Nick McGill.
Together we are a pair of goats called Feckless Moans.
And this is Talk Told to Me.
A ritual bloodletting at the altar of prog rock in which bloodless repetition Nick and omniscience Omen will send to the heavens the meat smoke of every single song with which Rushi Rajna, rock band Jethro Tull, have ever blessed the believers.
We will accept the grain offerings of guitarist Joe Parrish, encourage sin offerings of synth player John O'Hara, smudge out the burnt offerings of bassist David Goodyear, and embrace the peace offerings of percussionist Scott Hammond. And if we don't give up our earthly possessions, shave our heads, strap on a hair shirt, and live in a barrel, then we will ask for the trespass offering of the sacrificing Scotsman, the altruistic artist, the forgiving flautist, Ian Exonerating Anderson.
Wow, someone's coming for my gig. That was great, Nick.
Thank you. Thank you, that felt good.
We decided to switch things up a little bit today, and if you do detect with your keen ears any difference in my recording, it is because I am back in Santa Fe for a quick week, getting ready to sacrifice myself to the marathon beasties this coming weekend.
Mother Marathon, please hear my prayer.
Hear me and just let me die.
Please, Mother Marathon. Yes, Omen is running for the weekend, and he will be back in... Wait, are you going to be in Buffalo the next time we record? You are, aren't you?
I'll be back in Florida for 2 weeks, and then I'll be in Buffalo for the summer.
There it is.
Performing Measure for Measure.
How exciting. Who are you playing in Measure for Measure? Are you playing the Measure or the Measure?
I'm actually the measurer. I'm taking the measure. I'm measuring everyone in the audience.
Ooh, wow. So that's an important role then.
Yeah. Too short, you can't come. Now, I'm playing Lucio, which is actually kind of relevant to the discussion we're about to have. A kind of a biblical adjacent reference. We have Angelo and Angelo. Sorry, we have Lucio and Angelo in the same play. So the light one and the angel.
Oh, very exciting.
They're both shitty.
They're both awful people.
But in distinct ways.
Yes. Two kinds of shitty. How about today, the day that we are recording? Happy Beltane, everybody.
Happy Beltane, happy May Day for all of you labor workers, and also happy Nowruz, the beginning of the Persian New Year and celebrated day in Iranian culture.
Well, that's exciting too.
Yeah, lots to celebrate.
That it is. One thing to celebrate today is we are covering one of my all-time favorite Jethro Tull songs.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that. I mean, I'm not surprised, but...
Yeah, I get the vapors when I listen to this song.
And Nick, what is that song that is so favorited by you?
So this is track 11 of 12 off of the 2022 release of The Zealot Gene. This is In Brief Visitation.
Why don't we briefly take a visitation of this song and have a listen?
Good thinking. Let's do that.
Nick McGill.
Oh, Minsade.
I see that you're cleaning yourself off with a paper towel. That makes a lot of sense based on what we just heard.
It's I will never be able to drink this bottle of booch. It erupts. This is all euphemistic, by the way. It erupts with...
So...
Oh, gosh.
This is so interesting because in recollecting this song, I was like, oh yeah, this is one of the Ian specials. He recorded all this totally by himself. Not the case.
Yeah, this is very much not. And that's kind of a rarity for me when it's a super beautiful song. It usually falls into that acoustic category. Not really yes, it's acoustic.
It has a lot of acoustic
but there's
elements.
a lot more. Yeah.
It is much more layered than I remembered, and it has a lot more going on in it than I think I ever realized.
So much more. One of the most important things going on in here, I think, is important, which I noted at the top of the podcast. JPJ is in this song.
Joe Parrish, the junior.
Joe Parrish, JP Jr., Joe Parrish James. This is his first Jethro Tull song.
Yeah, so really, really interesting, and interesting the role that he takes in this song. He's playing an electric guitar. He's got it turned up.
Yeah,
and
it's turned.
It certainly is, and it's on kind of an overdrive, but it's very soft. It's faded way back, so I didn't even notice it until this very listen.
It's very good.
Because it's back all the way in the background. It's forming a parallelogram with the flute in a lot of cases.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's just adding a little flavor, which, unless your palate is well developed, you could be forgiven for missing.
I was going to say it accentuates. It is not the main body. It adds to it. And when you do hear it, it's so very nice. And it's a great precursor to what we're moving into, this new album, Rock Flöte.
Yes, it is.
It sounds like him. This is like the one soft piece that he does. And then he can show you the other side too.
And it's only soft because of the way that it's mixed, I think. Like it's played out. It's just, I think it really comes down to the mixing that they've pulled it back. I mean, maybe not. Maybe he
seems to be playing it sweetly, though, as opposed to vengefully, like Rock Flute.
I'll give you that. I'll give it to you for your birthday. I'll put it in a box for you. It'll have your name on it. Okay, so we have the background guitar, which is really spectacular. We also have a couple of other guitar flavors. We have Ian playing the guitar, and then we have a mysterious third guitar sound, which maybe is just the bass on a higher playing, or maybe is Ian doing some sort of atypical picking on a fairly low set of strings.
I still need someone to love. In brief visitation, the fall guy was here.
It's hard to know. It's hard to follow because this song is very, very fast. As sweet as it is, it's very fast.
Yes, it is.
And it's very layered and difficult to pull stuff out. And I think that kind of adds a little bit to the beauty of the songs. It sweeps you along.
I had to listen to it once and a half because I was so swept away by the instrumentation, I completely forgot to try to count what the time signature is.
Yeah.
I believe that most of it is in 8/8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Bum, 2, 3, bum, bum, 2, 7, bum, bum, dum, bum, bum, 7, 8.
Someone outrageous, someone to make me laugh.
Which makes you count it pretty fast.
Yeah.
And then when we get into the bra, ba da 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 da, I am not so certain. It could be in some form of a 3, or it could be that Ian is playing a sort of a swung long triplet over top of that 8 count. But it is
Wow.
It is a little complex rhythmically for that instrumental section.
Yeah. It is, but it doesn't come off as that. It doesn't come off terribly proggy.
It doesn't.
Fits so perfectly right on top of it.
Yeah, it's
really nice.
It's really fascinating the way that he's composed it because, like you say, it's not jarring. It doesn't jar you into thinking like, oh yes, it's prog now. It just kind of sweeps you along. Mm-hmm. Speaking of sweeping, I want to play Synth or String.
In brief visitation, the fall guy was here.
Oh, I know. It sounds way too good to be synth.
But do we have any?
But no one's credited for strings. Yeah. No one's credited for strings on this. I'm going to pull out the vinyl insert here.
Ooh, look at that. Oh, what a beautiful piece.
Beautiful image of a church.
Yeah. An
Church
octagon.
dome. Hexagon. There are only 6 sides. Percussion, harmonica. Nothing is given credit for strings on this.
So then we have to assume that that is the best synth job we've ever heard.
Maybe it's layered enough and mixed well enough that any resemblance to synth is like buried under there.
Well, also, it's not the 80s anymore. It's not even the 90s. It's not even the early 2000s. We are fully in 2025 or whatever year we're in right now. And so technology has evolved to the point where maybe you can auto-generate, you can computer-generate strings that really do sound that good. But boy, howdy, do they.
I don't have a frame of reference to string synth present day, other than maybe this, if this is it, but I don't have anything else to base this off of.
Yeah.
But it sounds so lovely. Dee Palmer could do her own full orchestration with this technology. And boy, would I love to hear that.
And probably does
I hope so, yeah.
at this point. At 123, there is just an incredible swell of strings with the guitar mixed into it, and it's just lovely.
Right on my heart in brave dedication. The fall guy was here in brief visitation.
And then, Nick, whom do we have on the piano?
Piano is John O'Hara.
So presumably John O'Hara is also playing the synth, but what I want to point out
Right.
about this is the absolutely heartbreakingly delicate piano work that he's doing. This is unlike anything that we have ever heard in Tull. Yet again, this delicate, he's just kind of like plinking here and there.
I still need someone to love.
It reminds me of dewdrops sprinkled upon the springtime fruits. I mean, it really is just so like tender and subtle. Oh my gosh, I don't even have the words.
This really is, I know I've said this before, and it was probably half-assed and not actually true, but this is such a unique sound for Tull.
It is. There are a number of things that we don't have in other places. I mean, one, that way, way, way quiet but on overdrive electric guitar, that plinky little droplets of goodness piano sound. Of course, we've had string swells before. We've had synth strings swells as well. There's even some little gestures that I really like that are maybe not 100% unique, but I really love Ian's guitar gesture of rum-pa-ta-dum-pa-dum. That breaks up the verses. Rum-pa-ta-dum-pa-dum.
Yeah.
It brings a sense of danger. It brings a sense of darkness to this really gorgeous, light-filled song. There's I think a theme of this album has been the mixing of dark and light, and this is maybe the best example of it so far.
Yeah, it does it so well. It does it so very well, and I think it is those layers of when we're used to those broad sweeping strings that we've heard in the past. It's usually an acoustic. It's really, the strings are right there, right in front, and you're feeling it and you're moving with that. But they're under there. They're under there with Joe's guitar.
Yeah.
They are beneath the flute. They're beneath Ian's voice. It's all layered so uniquely. And I think that is what makes this sound so different, is because it's the combination. It's the perfect combination of things that, I mean, pull them all out and we've heard them in Tull songs, but this meatball is a different meatball.
This, I was going to use the metaphor of the mole sauce. It's got like 100 ingredients, and maybe you can taste them each individually, but really what you taste is this other thing that has never tasted, that has never existed before. It's really incredible.
Yeah, it's a melange.
It is a melange. There's one wonderful moment of Ian's voice that I want to point out. I mean, he's in very good voice for this whole song.
Very much, yeah.
But I think it's the very final verse where he sings, "In brief visitation, the fall guy was here."
In brief visitation, the fall guy was here.
He goes down on here.
Yeah, he just barely speaks it. It goes, yeah.
I love it when he
there's
does.
a finality.
He's been doing that. He's been using that on this album, and I think that we'll hear more of that on Rockeflute.
I believe so, yeah.
He's bringing in that new range of his voice that we really haven't heard in previous albums.
Yeah, right.
That he can get that sense of depth where suddenly it's like the floor just drops out from underneath you.
Yeah.
I love it.
I think you're right. It is the very last word. And then we go into just one kind of replay of that bridge, that da-na-na-na-na-na-na, and then we go through that, and then it's done. It ends pretty abruptly. But yeah, that adds, of all the final moments in this story so far, of all the moments we've hit that could have been the final moments, that really puts a pin in it, even though this is not technically the final moment. We do have one more song.
I think that if this was the final song of the album, let's talk construction of the album as a whole. If this was the final, there'd be a lot of like weeping. It'd be a lot of like records spinning on that final groove and just like the sound of weeping. But fortunately, he gives us the Fisherman of Ephesus as a little cheer up gift.
Cheer up, but it's so hard and dark. But it's a good button. I think it's a better button, honestly. I do think it wraps up the overall sound of the album.
Yes.
It works a lot better than just like, oh, by the way, this is a unique sound to Tull and to the album itself. We're tacking it on the end. It may feel like it's like, oh, is this a bonus track? What's going on here?
Yeah, good point.
Oh, although it does not, by virtue of the fact that it goes from 3 Loves 3 directly into In Brief Visitation. There's no break at all. It is a clean transition. It is the cleanest. I remember when I was listening to it for the first time, and I think I've told this story a handful of times already, but when we got the album from JDA last year or 2 years ago, a year and a half at this point, I listened to it without looking at where the tracks were, like when, it's now this track, it's now this track.
Right.
I had no idea when this song started.
I had the same.
I was like, what?
Experience on my first listen where it's just one whole, like basically the whole second half of the album.
Yeah. You get to 3 Loves 3. You obviously know it's 3 Loves 3. Okay. Then by the time there's a song change, it starts playing Fisherman of Ephesus. And you're like, where did I miss a song? And then you go back and you look, it's like, where's that? Why didn't it stop? What's going on?
Yeah.
And then you finally hear it, but hearing it out of that context, I think I said last episode as well, hearing 3 Loves 3 stop without hearing that other one is just so uncomfortable making. And this one works a little bit better, but that transition really is so solid.
The second half of the album is kind of the musical version of Temporal Fugue, where you get in your car and you drive half an hour and then you suddenly end up
Yes.
6 states away and you're like, oh my God, why am I investigating Mothman?
Yeah, that happens.
And you have the advantage. You've been listening. I haven't bought my vinyl version. Oh, wait a minute. Yes, I have. What am I talking about?
You have the vinyl of this,
I have the vinyl of this. I got it in England. I mostly have been listening to this digitally, but one of the advantages of listening to it on vinyl is you really can hear it in the way that the artist intended you to hear the break or lack of break between the songs. If you listen to it on Spotify or Apple Music, there are a lot of settings that are either automatically put in or you put in at some point and forgot that you put in, where it'll overlap the last couple of seconds and the first couple of seconds, or it'll do an automatic fade out, or it'll put in space where there isn't supposed to be space. You can never really be sure of what you're hearing and how it's supposed to be. But with the vinyl, it's a physical object. You can't change it without destroying it.
I cut that specific ring out. It's a single now.
You got your lace.
It's just that. And then it's maybe what would be the other side. It's like half of Shoshana Sleeping and half of Sad City Sisters, probably.
You took the silence in every single vinyl Jethro Tull album and combined them into an album of Jethro Tull silence.
It's an 8-disc set. If you guys want to pledge for that on Patreon, you're more than welcome to.
It's not silent singing, it's silent spinning.
It's the best of Jethro Tull silence.
Yeah. This wasn't.
That was very good.
Thank you.
Very good.
We weren't up to it. Nick, welcome back. Jeepers Creepers, where'd you get them peepers? And also, what do you use them for, Nick?
I use them for peeping, obviously.
Yeah, and what you peeping right now?
Oh, that's a good question. I am peeping. I'm peeping the vinyl that I hold in my hands.
You can lead a horse to water.
I thought you were going to make a Peeping Tom joke, so I kind of led you to that one.
I was setting you up.
Loopy today. Loopy. I hold in my hands the vinyl of the Zealot Gene.
You sure
You
do.
can see in the back, I've got the special edition one right there. But that one also came with the regular vinyl as well. So we're talking album art as we do on the penultimate track here. We have a picture of nude grandpa Ian Anderson.
Yes, which I love. It's
very raw.
it's vulnerable, but also like incredibly manly. I don't know.
Yeah, he's shooting you with the stink eye. It says, I dare you to comment on my nudity.
Yeah. It's like, why aren't you nude?
Everyone's nude now. So we've got this really pretty kind of rough serifed font for Jethro Tull and the Zealot Gene. It looks really, really nice. It's almost like calligraphic, but not quite. For the picture of Ian, background, we've got the left side is black and it fades into white, and then we see what can only be pieces from the Bible, excerpts in. It's basically like that magnet art that you're like, oh, I'm going to put this one here and I'm going to put this one here.
Right,
And some
yes.
little pieces. And it's really this. I mean, I see two beloved, dropping rivers, himself, zealot, lilies, the breasts, sockets and whoredom. Yeah, so it's the best of the Bible here.
Yeah.
That's our background. Ian on top. We've got color opposites here.
Yes.
We've got the light coming in from Ian's right-hand side, so we see that side of him.
Contrasting with the darkness.
And then we have nothing on his left side, so it's almost purely black, except for I see just a little reflection in the bottom of his eye, his left eye.
So you only get kind of his silhouette. We were just talking about how the musical themes and the kind of the thematic themes of this album are so much about contrasting dark and
Yeah.
light. Oh my gosh, he's already 10 steps ahead of us. He's literally giving it to us on the album cover.
I'm going to do my thesis on this, I think.
Finally, you congratulate.
I know, right? From Toll University. We open our gatefold here. We've got a picture on our left-hand side of just a great, enormous church. Full on there. Beautiful.
That
Lovely, lovely church there.
must be a very specific church. Do we have a notation for what that is?
I don't hear. I can tell you who took the picture, but yeah, I don't have it here, unfortunately. I bet you if you Google imaged it, though, you could probably pull it up.
It's very distinct.
Then we have, going in clockwise order on the right-hand side, the band. We've got Ian with his flute, and this is very similar to the inside of the booklet for Rock Flute
Yes.
as well. It's got kind of squares of the people, of the musicians. So we've got Ian on his flute, little headphones on, and he's at the microphone. After that, we have Scott Hammond on drums. Then we go around. We've got John O'Hara on keys and David Goodyear on bass, and then Florian in the bottom left, Florian Opale.
Amazing.
And it's kind of this hodgepodge of kind of looks like a garage band of dads, getting together
Yes,
to play.
yes.
They're all middle age. It's so funny, middle or older.
It's the Sunday Bocce League.
Yes, they get together and play rock and roll music.
Yeah.
And on the back, we've got more of that font, the Zealot Gene, sides 1, 2, 3, and 4, 3 tracks each. Beneath that, we've got our credits, music and lyrics by Ian Anderson, basic tracks recorded at Modern World Studio, tracks 1, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, and 12. Engineered by Michael Neandoro, other songs recorded at home, tracks 2, 6, 9, 10, and 11. So we know exactly which ones he did at home. So it's Jacob's Tale, Sad City Sisters, Where Did Saturday Go, 3 Loves 3, and In Brief Visitation.
Interesting.
So that's everybody doing their own parts and then sending that in.
That's crazy to me.
That's a COVID baby there.
Wow.
Next up is producer and stereo mixing Ian Anderson, mastered by Nick Watson at Fluid Mastering London. Artwork, concept, and photography, Ian Anderson. Artwork Prime Images, James Anderson. Artwork design, Thomas Ewerhard. Published under license by BMG London. And then we have the profile of Ian Anderson on the right-hand side of that.
Yes.
Him basically pretty much the exact same thing. If we were to look at the side of him from that front image, we get Ian from the side. And again, our background goes from black beneath the white text fades into white that has Ian on top of that. Very lovely. Very stark. Very potent imagery here. It's very nice.
Just a note about Modern World Studio. They're located in the Cotswolds in Gloucestershire, England, which is one of the most beautiful places in England that there is. It's just absolutely gorgeous there. And looking at some pictures of the studios themselves, they're gorgeous.
Yeah. Just a note on Thomas Ewerhard. He does artwork for a lot more badass bands than Jethro Tull. If you go to his website, if you look him up, he clearly has a theme. He clearly does something well. It's a lot of skeletons and sacrilegious artwork and all that.
Oh, nice.
All classic, like what you would expect heavy death metal
Right.
album art to look like.
Right.
He has a brand and he does it well, which is very strange that he has artwork design credit, but like, I don't know what that is. I don't know what artwork they're talking about.
I imagine it's the layout of, someone else maybe took the photograph and then he rendered it and put it in situ.
Yeah.
But it does, that darkness and that kind of intensity comes through the artwork of this album.
Yeah, I get it.
Even if it's not, screamo metal skulls and skeletons and stuff.
Yeah, it's much more subdued, but you clearly have to have like a really artistic eye to do that well and cleanly. And it's nice to see the contrast of this like skeleton with a top hat on a post with a bird skull hanging from it.
That's for my solo album.
That's your solo. Okay, right, okay.
The Bone Man 2. Cake Man 2, Cake Full of Bones.
Oh, the Cake Man! I forgot all about the Cake Man. Wow, we really missed out on a lot there. I mean, that's album artwork. Really Amazing. Nice, really lovely. If you don't have the vinyl, I recommend, the CD, I suppose. I know a lot of people still do CDs. Don't know why. But I do recommend looking it up. If you haven't seen it, it's really potent. It's really nice.
And the most important thing is to enjoy it in whatever medium makes sense for you.
Yeah.
Especially if it's vinyl.
I'm going to do a Smoke Signal covers of Jethro Tull songs.
I have a laser pointed at the moon in which I'm burning the lyrics for every single Jethro Tull. I've uploaded Silent Singing into a high-powered laser on a 3D printer mount, and it's just burning all the lyrics into the moon.
Are you doing just Silent Singing, or are you gonna? Well, I mean, Silent Singing works because in space no one can hear you sing.
That's right.
But are you going to do Rock Flute? I mean, even though that's not updated in Silent Singing, you can do a little addendum.
I had to put that on one of the moons of Jupiter. There wasn't enough room on the terrestrial moon.
Yeah, you timed it out perfectly to have just enough space.
Yeah, I didn't know.
And then they release another album.
Yep. Start again. Nick, welcome back. Here we are talking about the text and textual context and the contextual subtext of In Brief Visitation. Nick, we have as our reference verses from El Biblio, John 21:25 and Luke 24:12. And Jean-Luc Picard, stardate 1/26/86.
Perfect.
Nick, do you have those? Do you have Johnny and Lukey pulled up?
I do. It just says engage. I don't know. That's all I know about Star Trek.
That's all you need to know.
Yeah, right. Prime Directive. I know
something. The Borg.
We are the Borg. Yeah. Okay. John 21:25. Luke 24:12. So real quick ones here. John, Jesus did many other things as well. If every one of them were written down, I suppose that even the whole world would not have room for the books that would be written. That sounds like the end of like a teen trilogy.
I love that so much. It is I love that on so many levels. It is the perfect, and other stuff.
Yeah, right. Oh man, he did so much. You don't even know. It's very Trumpian, actually. You don't even know how much Christ did.
I think it's great because it leaves room for imagination. It leaves room for fan fiction.
Jesus fan fiction.
If the Bible is a George Lucas picture, that one line in John gets adapted into every single Dave Filoni directed television show.
Of which there are, I think, too many? Dare I say it?
I dare you not to say that.
I
dare you to take that back. Okay.
And then Luke 24:12 is, Peter, however, got up and ran to the tomb. Bending over, he saw the strips of linen lying by themselves, and he went away, wondering to himself what had happened.
Yeah, and we actually covered that in a previous
I know.
episode. I don't think it was directly referenced, but we talked about that with Where Did Saturday Go?
Yeah. Yep.
Where after the Sabbath, they came back to the tomb and big mystery. So between the
Just linens.
between the two of those, if I disappeared, it would just be like floral panties, nothing else.
How many pairs of floral panties are you wearing?
So many.
Enough that when I disappear, it's going to be great.
It's like the last rubber band that you put on the watermelon. Just. So, Nick, between the two of those quotes, what space does that put us into before we even get into the lyrics? John says, and there was a bunch of other stuff, and Luke describes
What Peter did.
Peter being confused.
Yeah. So it seems to be two different points in time. And Jesus did everything, and he was... That feels very like the very end of the story. And he rode off into the sunset. And he married Hermione, and they had kids, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. That's so final. That's such a final thing. Like, you say that because you don't want to say anymore. You know, you wouldn't say, and he did many things and it would fill up so many books. There's no way we could write him down. But he also did this. You know, you wouldn't do that.
Right.
But then Peter, that goes back to in brief visitation, right? Peter going and finding the linens. Peter Simon, right? I think.
Sure.
Who was also 3 loves 3.
Yep.
That was the 3 denials.
So I was thinking a little bit about this, why we have these two quotes, these two verses from the Bible. And for me, what I think it is we have the untellable and the unknowable.
Ooh. I like that.
Because Jesus, in this, what we're discovering, and what this song is really about is like the post-man Jesus, the more than man, the part of Jesus. And so there is the part that is knowable, there is the part that is tellable, there is the part that is unknowable, and there's the part that is untellable. And I think that that's kind of a great departure point for the lyrics of this song.
Yeah, that's a really nice way to put it. Yeah.
If we jump into the lyrics, I still need someone to love, very Beatles, someone outrageous, someone to make me laugh.
I still need someone to love, someone outrageous, someone to make me laugh.
I loved when in our conversation with Vicar John, he talked about the sense of humor that comes from Jesus, the kind of wild statements that he made. We talked about comparing him to the Zen master who says things that are like incomprehensible, that makes your mind really pause and like confront the reality of what's happening. And this seems to me a reference to that aspect of the man.
I think that might be like the one thing that stuck out the most in our discussion with John is his presentation of Jesus doing things with a sense of humor.
Yeah.
It humanizes him more, and it makes it less like, this is what we do. And
of course.
Like, he's not this infallible figure.
No, he's a unique guy. He's a human. And maybe a little bit silly. And that's okay.
Yeah, we can only hope.
Because the earth does not have space for all the books of all the things that he did. Maybe some of those things were kind of cool and funny and silly. Someone who fell from above to channel my hopes and dreams and write me an autograph. Verse break here on my heart in Grade's dedication.
Someone who fell from above to channel my hopes and write me an autograph here on my heart in Grade dedication.
I love that he continues the sentence past the break in the verse. It's so gorgeous writing.
Yeah. Oh, the poetry in this one is really lovely. Really quick, I want to note, Ian provides John 21 and then Luke 24. They're in opposite order in the Bible.
Yes.
technically, chronologically, we would be seeing Peter going and then John after the fact saying, oh, and by the way, it's unknowable. So it's just an interesting idea that Ian referenced them in that order. That's all.
And then we have the fall guy was here in brief visitation. I still need someone to love. In brief visitation, the fall guy was here.
The fall guy was here in brief visitation. I still need someone to love. In brief visitation, the fall guy was here.
We have this repetition of the fall guy. And Nick, when you are ready, permit me, if you will, to take you on a historical journey.
Oh, an etymological journey of the fall guy?
Oh, yes, girl.
Let me get this popcorn.
Are you ready?
I'm very ready. I'm very excited.
Okay, well, what is a fall guy?
Someone that you pin blame on?
Uh-huh. What is another common expression for a fall guy? What's another way to say that same thing?
Oh, gosh. A patsy?
Yes, okay, yes.
I mean, there could be
No,
anything.
you're
You're going to
right.
have to give it to me.
What's the most obvious one? Like, oh, he's our
Scapegoat.
scapegoat. Now, what is the origin of the scapegoat, you ask me, Nick?
I knew that at one point. Tell me, though, Omen, tell me.
The scapegoat has a very specific origin and goes back to Jewish tradition. There is a reference it's Leviticus 16, has a reference to it, but the tradition is actually much older than that. As it's described in the Torah, it's a key part of the celebration of Yom Kippur. And what was done was two male goats were slaughtered, and one goat was dedicated to God, in the kind of traditional old world offering. The other goat was designated for Azazel.
Azazel, yeah.
So the other goat was dedicated to Azazel. Now, depending on where you look, Azazel could be the name of a cliff, a certain geographical feature where the goat was thrown off of. And it's important to remember that this goat was laden symbolically with the sins of the community. Mm-hmm. Everything bad that everyone had done was put on this goat, and the goat was offered into the void. But however, if you look in another place in Jewish tradition, Azazel is one of the fallen angels who became a goat-like demon. And so you have one goat that goes to God and one goat that goes to this goat demon and sacrificed.
I also see that in some scriptures it's read as Ozel, EZ space OZLE, which translates to goat that departs.
Yes, exactly. Or the scapegoat.
Yeah, scape being a shortened version of escape.
Yeah. So we have this tradition of putting all of our sins onto this creature that is then sacrificed. That tradition prefigures the sacrifice, the self-sacrifice of Jesus. He was literally in the Jewish tradition taking on the sins of his community and being sacrificed up to God. And that's actually part of the Christian kind of vibe and Christian tradition is, oh, Christians, why don't you do sacrifice of goats anymore? Well, the reason is Jesus stepped in and fulfilled that need. And so now we don't need that anymore. He did it once and for all of us because he was so much better than a goat.
Interesting.
He could just do it once.
Yeah.
So that referenced, as Ian kind of like in such a casual way puts it, the fall guy refers back down through the millennia to this ancient tradition of sacrificing a goat.
Yeah. One of the very common phrases, he died for our sins.
That's what we're told in Sunday school.
He opened the gates of heaven to us.
Exactly.
They hired St. Peter off of Craigslist, and it worked out. Doesn't happen often, but it worked out.
But the cool thing that's kind of my big realization is that wasn't his invention. He was riffing on a tradition that already existed and doing it in this new, the thing that I'm realizing and that John kind of opened my eyes to, like you were saying, it's not just that Jesus was like, the Son of God and all this. It's that he was a unique person and he did stuff with his own style. And because of that, he was like doing jazz with spirituality.
Freeform spirituality. I mean, it kind of was, really. I mean, he was really going above and beyond and trying to do something new and creating something new.
Exactly. Or new in that tradition.
Right.
Or new, he was putting it in a different key.
So we have just the fact that this narrator, Ian, someone who is of the Christian faith, this is a first-person song, and they're saying that, or...
I see the wheels turning.
Is this John? Is this John singing this?
Or is it Peter?
I still need someone to love. Or Peter?
Is it a continuation of Three Loves Three?
Yeah, when he finds the tomb. He still needs that someone. He's clearly has not dealt with the procedure of mourning.
And I think the answer to all of that is yes. Like, I think that the reason that Peter is such a wonderful figure within that story is because he gives us the in. He's so fallible and so guilty and then so forgiven that somewhere within that story, anybody can relate to one of those things.
Right. He's very human too, I feel like a lot of the characters in the Bible, at least from bits that I've heard, it's like a 1 or 2 sentence story.
They're flat. They're two-dimensional.
They're one note. They're there to prove one thing or to be the example of one thing.
They're allegorical.
Yeah. But this is, Peter and Jesus and probably a lot of the other disciples, or maybe.
Right.
They're substantial. And we learn from those just as much.
And I think the big
if not more.
Success of this album is in pulling back the kind of two-dimensional Sunday school nativity scene of this and really showing us like the humanity behind it. And what I love about this song is that this notion of in brief visitation, the fall guy was here. A human lifespan in the bucket of history is so minuscule, but it's had such a big effect clearly on the singer personally, on all the lives around this person that he touched, and also on history from that point on.
But Jesus was only like 34 or something when he died?
Yeah.
That's super brief visitation. He was not
briefer than us.
He did not have a full life. Yeah, exactly. We made it past Jesus age. Yeah, it's this song. It's mournful. It's clearly like, you're a part of me. You were something to me, and I do not have that anymore. It's sad. It's mournful, but it's sweet.
It's almost like a breakup song.
From the aspect of the person who did the breaking up, not like
yes.
I'm over you. It's not Taylor Swift. It's John Mayer, basically. Cultural references, right? That works, right?
Yeah, that's great. Good job.
From 20 years ago. Yeah.
So here's a question that I have. A lot of this is clear to me. Right on my heart and grave dedication, the Fogwoods Humor is good. They still need someone to hate, to brand with harsh accusations, to scare the many and even the few who flock to the party but turn from the glare when caught in the headlights and taken to task.
They still need someone to hate, to brand with harsh accusations, to scare the many and even the few who flock to the party but turn from the glare when caught in the headlights and taken to task.
What is going on?
We clearly are swapping from I miss this character, this person was this for me. We swap over to the Romans, to anyone not following Christ's teachings. So they still need someone to hate, to blend with harsh accusations, to scare. So then we get into maybe the full idea of his followers, Christianity in general, persecutions, which probably very quickly swaps over to the other way around of Christianity doing the persecution.
Not super quickly, but yes.
Oh.
What happened?
What if the they is still referencing the Christians?
Oh, girl.
What if I is the Christians and then the they is the Christians?
So I love that you took it all the way back to the Romans, because I had started where you were in typical Mome fashion.
Oh, okay.
We had started in opposite places and we're working our way to the middle.
We got there.
Yeah, like we were eating two ends of a strand of spaghetti in the moonlight.
Eating each other's tails.
That's it.
The Momoboros.
So yes, the Romans did need someone to hate. They needed someone to blame. Yeah. They needed an example. We talked about Martin Luther King, how society couldn't accept that there was someone saying, hey, maybe we should all be equal. And so there was a societal need to put all of the hate onto one scapegoat. Mm-hmm. The Romans did the same thing. But then also, to your point, where you were going toward is, I think that this is a moment of, oh Lord, protect me from your followers, where now, and sorry, to go into that interstitial period, there were a couple hundred years where Christians were persecuted, thrown to the lions.
Right.
But then Constantine, Emperor Constantine, had a conversion and said, you know what, we're going to make Christianity an officially tolerated religion here in the Roman Empire. But fast forward to today, and as you said, who's doing the persecutions? Who's trying to make whole sectors of society not allowed to live? Who's bashing the homosexuals and the trans and anybody that they want?
Yeah.
It's the Christians.
To fit to their agenda, yeah.
Oh, people, what have you done? Put him in your golden cage.
Locked him. To go back to the Romans really quickly. Jesus was also a fall guy for the Romans. Christianity was starting to get that following, and you've got that head, you've got that figurehead of the whole organization. You kill him, hopefully he's the fall guy that makes everything else kind of fall apart.
Yeah. And interesting context with that, at that point, it wasn't even Christianity. You couldn't even call it Christianity.
Right, yeah.
It was just this one really weird dude and the Jews rebelling, fomenting discontent against the Romans. And a couple, 100 years or 50 years, within memorable time after the time of Jesus, there was a rebellion, a Jewish rebellion against the Romans. And what ended up happening was that the Romans destroyed the very important Jewish temple, literally razed it to the ground. And that was the moment that started the Jewish diaspora throughout the Western world.
They've never stopped moving since. They're always persecuted, no matter where they go.
And so, to your point, the Romans really did need someone to blame this cultural movement on.
Yeah.
And almost kind of got it wrong, because Jesus was not the one who was saying, yeah, rise up.
Right, yeah. But he was enough of a focus that he was dangerous. And I'm sure they probably didn't know one way or the other, how much influence and what kind of influence. I mean, it was all kind of starting to bubble up.
Exactly.
Like a sourdough starter.
Exactly, but not for the Jews, because their bread is unleavened during Passover.
That's true. Only during Passover, right?
We never know, even living in a historical moment, you never really have perspective on what that historical moment of why that moment is historical. You might think you know, but then it takes 100 years to be like, oh yeah, that was actually the start of this thing.
Yeah. Sometimes well over 100 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the line, cowardly persuasion behind the life mask.
Cowardly persuasion behind the life mask.
A life mask is a mask that you make of someone's face while they're still alive, as opposed to a death mask. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of a massive critique, as we are come to expect from Ian, of the Christian organization, present day, to say, yes, you're hiding behind what you're saying is this living representation of Jesus, but actually you are cowards, spewing hate, branding people with accusations, using this to frighten people into doing what you want them to do. And in the meantime, I'm nursing this sorrow for the loss of this beautiful individual.
Yeah. That were he around today, boy, it would be different. It would be very, very different.
And Ian says as much in the preface to the Silent Singing lyrics.
This one has the most direct, this isn't even allegorical. This has a direct statement on present day, those last two verses.
I agree. And, let's think about the time that Ian was recording this. Let's say maybe he had written it previously, but the Black Lives Matter movement was really happening at that time when Ian was probably writing. I'm thinking of, do you remember, I know you're not a big sports fan, but probably even you were aware of the situation with Mr. Kaepernick.
Yes, I was, yeah.
The football player who, his outrageous offense to the world was kneeling during the Pledge of Allegiance, or the singing bit.
The national anthem.
The national cranking.
Which, completely related, spawned the really clever and amazing t-shirts and bumper stickers that say, "I kneel for the cross, I stand for the flag."
Right. It's just so, yeah, ridiculous. But, that was a moment of him using his visibility to kneel in solidarity, to kneel in protest of the systematic inequalities in America. And wow.
It was a big moment.
Literally, all he was saying was, hey, maybe we should treat people equally. Sound familiar? And look at how he was sacrificed and scapegoated by society. I mean, that's just one example. It happens over and over again.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's poignant and it's appropriate and apt for many situations. I'm sure through the eons it has been appropriate, but it feels really, really, really key here in the struggles that the social justice struggles that we're experiencing. Honestly, in the last 10, 15 years, it feels like it's gotten really bad, but I wasn't totally aware of things prior to that. But awareness has really grown in that time, that people are humans. Everybody is a human.
And I do think that in a lot of ways, inequality is getting worse. For some groups, it has always been bad. Mm-hmm. But I think that also for a lot of groups, it is getting worse. The rich are getting richer.
Sure.
And maybe we do need to be throwing the money changers out of the temple again, because they keep sneaking back in there. And again, I think this album is so timely and important, genuinely.
Omen. Next week, our final track off of the second to final album.
So far,
yeah. So what are we talking about next week?
Next week, we are talking about The Fishermen of Ephesus.
Ba-na-na-na. No. Ba-na-na-na-na.
Beep, bitty, beep, bitty, bee. It's fun. It's great. Can't wait to talk about it. We'll also get to figure out where Ephesus is.
Got a little blurb from Ian about playing in Ephesus in the booklet itself.
Nice.
Exciting.
Until next week, I still need something outrageous to wear. And so I'm going to go check out our TeePublic page where I can find branded Talk Tall to Me merch. It's really, really great stuff.
I encourage you to make your dangerous affections not sublime, but loud and proud by leaving us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify if available. Please.
If you need a steadying sail which never flutters or breaks the mast, I recommend subscribing to our Patreon at either the $5 amount or the $15 amount, which either way will give you access to our Discord, which is a steady wind of words from fellow tall skulls like yourselves.
Until next week, I am the engraving upon your heart, Nick McGill.
I am someone to love, Omen Thomas Sade.
We are not full of harsh accusations to scare the many and even the few. We are the Feckless Momes.
And you are caught in the headlights of Talk Tall to Me. Talk Tall to Me is a proud member of the Feckless Momes Audio Network.